It is an honor for us to introduce a distinguished leader, Mr. Anthony Mwangi, the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Anthony is an accomplished professional with over 20 years of experience in government and regulatory affairs, public policy, public affairs, communication, stakeholder management, and business development, cutting across various industries in transportation, ICT, aviation, and oil and gas. Anthony will delve into a topic of utmost significance: cultural transformation as the key to digital transformation. In an era where technology and innovation are reshaping industries at an unprecedented pace, understanding the pivotal role of cultural transformation is essential for organizations striving to thrive in the digital age.
Good morning, and thank you, Harry, for inviting me for this exciting conversation. I'm very excited because, first of all, I didn't know that at one time I'll come to talk about the smart industry. One, because I have been in tech, I've been in different places, as you've heard, the AI, and actually it is at this point where we are seeing the merger, the fusion of both of them. So again, my name is Anthony. I am leading CAM team as a CEO, and we're looking at revolutionizing the industry and the economy. And I'll be sharing with you a few ideas on where we think we are. But even before we go to the cultural transformation to adoption of technology and the fourth industrial revolution, it is important that we know where we are. And I thought, with the aid of a few slides, that we can be able to show you or demonstrate to you how we are working towards this. And just to give you a few perspectives about manufacturing in Kenya, as we are speaking today in 2022, the contribution of manufacturing to GDP of the country, which is about 14 trillion, is about 7.8. If you go back 10 years ago, 2011, it was about 11.16%. So meaning that we have been on a southward decline from 11.16% to 7.8%. But that does not mean that manufacturing itself is declining. It means that other industries, the telcos, and you've seen, all of you have seen how the development of telcos has been in the last about 15 years, 20 years. The banking industry, the insurance industry, the retail, wholesale, they have grown faster. But I'll be able to demonstrate to you in a few slides about what? About how we've been doing. So it is important for us first to appreciate where we are, to know, to be able to determine where we are headed. If you look at the slides, and I hope you can all see the slides, you'll see that manufacturing sector, we have 14 sectors, and unique one is 13, which is really not a manufacturing sector, but is a sector that provides services to the manufacturing sector, the productive sectors. Food and beverage, of course, being the biggest. That is where about 30% of our members are. We are agro-based economy, and that is why you will find naturally that the biggest industry is agro-processing. All the way to building and construction, automotive, we are talking in the area of e-mobility, which falls under that. And what we've done is to look at all these sectors and see where really are the opportunities for us to scale. And if you look on the other side of the screen, we operate in 7 regions. Obviously, Nairobi takes about 65% of manufacturing, which is not the most desirable way. But with the counties now, with all the initiatives that the government has, perhaps you start seeing much more manufacturing across the country. CAM has 1,300 members and active members. We have much more about the active members. And this makes us a more formidable, BMO, Business Management Organization, which started way back in 1959, so pre-independence. Okay? If you look at where we are, and I kind of alluded to that, 2022, contribution to GDP, 7.8%. And I just want to remind you again, that is not because manufacturing is shrinking. It is because other sectors have grown faster than manufacturing. Should manufacturing have grown faster than them? Yes. Has it happened elsewhere? Yes. If you look at Egypt, it's at 28%. You look at India, if you look at other countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, they're grown at that level, even actually upwards of 35%. But Kenya, there are things that we've not been able to do very well. But now when we met with His Excellency, the President, he said, look, we need to move this 7.8% to 20% by 2030. But what does that mean? In nominal numbers, and just to paint the perspective, even though our contribution to GDP is at 7.8%, outside public sector, we have the highest number of waged employees in the sector. Let me repeat that again. That even with 7.8 contribution, outside public sector, manufacturing has the highest number of waged employees at 352,000. We have also the biggest impact and linkages with other sectors. If you come from all the villages in Kenya, wherever you come from, whether it's Lunga, whether it's Nadapal, you will go to the local shop and find salt, sugar, soap. All those are manufactured goods. So the kind of, again, linkages that we have with other sectors is huge. The bread, all the things that we talked about, the first thing that you interact with when you wake up in the morning is manufactured products. That is toothpaste, the soap, all those, the lotion. Those are huge, and they power retail, they power supermarkets, they power wholesale. Any supermarket you go to, you find those manufactured goods, and all those are done by Kenyans and in manufacturing base in Kenya. Therefore, by going to 20%, what does that mean? The contribution to jobs from 352,000 to about 1 million. And if you look at that delta, that is about 3x. The contribution to GDP, what you're calling 1 trillion today, which is about 8.5 billion US, goes to about 50 billion US, about maybe upwards of 6 trillion. And then you can imagine the linkages that, again, the wholesale, the retail, and all the other sectors that we impact. The contribution to public coffers today is 360 billion. That moves again almost to 1 trillion. So we must drive towards that destination. We call it the lighthouse in 2030. But the question is it possible to do that? Is it easy to do that? Others have done it. We can do it. Egypt has done it. Vietnam has done it. China, if you went back to 2000, the year 2000, the GDP of China was quite low. Now look at what they've done. They've been able to lift hundreds of millions of people using manufacturing. So we can, and we have a market. Domestic market for East Africa is over 300 million people. If you go to a neighboring countries like Congo, even the milk, even the basic of the manufactured goods are imported. This is markets near us, so we can do it. But it's going to take more than just having an installed capacity. It's using the same capacity that we have and inject, the technology. But how are we going to do that? So from our perspective, we have given ourselves 4 pillars. And now you'll see how the technology start to fuse with the manufacturing sector. Global competitiveness at 2 levels. Number one, as a country, we're competing with everybody in the global marketplace. We're competing with the best of the world. We're competing with Americans, with the British. We're competing with Vietnamese, Bangladeshis, Indians, Chinese. Nobody buys our products just because we are Kenyans. Because we are good people. Of course, we are good people. They will buy because quality and the price that they can afford, and in very competitive manner. As a country, one, we must create opportunities for us to be globally competitive. At the moment, we are struggling with a tax regime that changes every year. We struggle in the cost of energy. If you compare Tanzania, you compare Egypt, you compare other places like Ethiopia, you will see in some cases we are 3 times more expensive in terms of power than those countries. That is one level of competitiveness. But the next level is at the factory floor. How are we using data analytics? How are we able to analyze our markets better? How are we coming up with the new products, new material science? How are we injecting the robotics? How are we, again, using AI, as you've seen here, using AI? That's the level, and that's where now technology will come and talk about what is it that is possible. That's number one. Number two, again, using data, and then we are sitting on mountains of data in this country. Perhaps now this is the time now we're starting to think about how do we use a smart tool to just really peel the onion on this data. If you look at the top Kenyan exports today, it will shock you, because number one is horticulture, which is from the farm, packed, lifted, off it goes to the market. Number two, tea. 95 of that tea is semi-processed, right? Is black tea. So 95%. If you look at number three, articles of apparels, what is done in the river, what is done in Babadogo, in the EPZs. But that accounts for about 60 billion shillings, right? So that is where you only interact with the manufactured product. But again, is that enough? We need to do more. When you start going to number 5, number 6, number 7, you start going to smaller value chains. This is why we have that pillar called export-led growth. But again, we are very clear that for us to move from where we are to the next level, we are going to have to inject, to be competitive, to lead export, we have to inject technology, and that's what we're talking about, smart industries. SME development, this is where the innovation will be. This is the driver of the economy, not only for Kenya, even for the developed world. SME development is not an option. 90% of the jobs are created in SMEs. We have to ensure that SMEs are scaling. We're reducing the mortality rate of our SMEs. Our SMEs are getting in manufacturing. And the good thing with the technology that we have in the world now, manufacturing has been democratized. We can be able to learn how to do the best of the product on YouTube. I know young people who are producing amazing stuff using YouTube. Agriculture for industry, we disaggregated that because that is our biggest industry. Again, use technology, but we are very clear from where we sit. Farmers on one side, agro-processors or industry on this side. In between, there is a lot of information asymmetry. Our role is first starting from agro-processing, work on the agri demand. If you're talking about potatoes, if you're talking about the wheat, if you're talking about the maize, we look at that and say, from industrial point of view, this is the aggregate demand. We want to democratize this information so that even farmers start seeing how much they need to plant. Today, we are net importers of almost everything. We imported, I think, food worth 400 billion. This is not sustainable. Again, technology will come to change that sector. Okay, let me just take a few examples before we get into a conversation about where we are and say, what have we been doing in order to now start having this information? And this, we use a lot of data analytics to be able to come up with this. If you look at textile today, 50 million people, actually, we should be talking about 300 million people within our market. We only have about 21,000 jobs. That is a local apparel sector. But if you go to the export, you'll see that today, and I just mentioned to you that this is number 3 biggest export from Kenya. The apparels that we take to the US market under AGOA. 500 million shillings, or 500 million US dollars, that's about 60 billion. This we can be able to drive to 10 billion. The work that you are doing is to look at what is the opportunity. We have mapped the global opportunity, what you're calling the pie, and we're saying, of all this, the whole of this pie, what will be the slice of our pie? So the size of the pie, the slice of the pie. That's the language that we're speaking. And we said, globally, there is about $2.1 trillion worth of this business. All right? What is it that we can achieve? We have mapped out and say we can move from 500 million US dollars to $10 billion in the next 7 years. And that is possible. We can drive jobs from 50,000 to 300,000 jobs, or even to 1 million jobs. For us to do that, data is important, using the latest data tools, data analytics, predictive analytics, AI in our own industrial parks, and this can be done. We are sharing this to show the population and to show the Kenyans and the government that it's possible to grow this economy. Let's move fast to the next one. And that would be leather. Leather, many people, when you slaughter, you get together, and Kenyans, this is our habit. You slaughter a goat, you slaughter a sheep, you slaughter a cow. In most cases, we believe that there is no value for this. But the fact of the matter is that if you take the global market for beef, and let's take beef for instance, and you say, for example, the global market is $1. If you again look at the global market for leather, is actually 10 times more than beef. And I don't think that number is, let me just repeat again. If you take the aggregate demand for beef globally, and you assign a number like $1, and then you take the global demand and the global market for leather and leather products, and you put a number on it, it is 10 times more than the beef. And I'll be able to demonstrate this very, very shortly. If you take an average cow, which has a height of about 30 square feet, if you slaughter the cow and sell the meat, you make about 50,000, 60,000. But if you take the same hide and process it and make shoes, about 20 shoes, you make about 150, 200,000, 300, depending on the kind of shoes that you make. Right? So in this country, we are collecting 3 million hides every year. 50% smuggled out, eaten by dogs, left to rot. 50% is, that's 1.5, is processed. Once it's processed, 70% of that is exported as a wet blue. That is a fast transformation. And then it comes back to Kenya as shoes, as bags, as belts, as wallets. We import millions of shoes every year, but we export and lose our raw materials. We did a quick study and we looked at 3 countries, Kenya, Ethiopia, Italy. Access to raw materials, we created a metric. We said access to raw material, continuum 0 to 10. Kenya and Ethiopia were accessing materials at 8 out of 10. Italy was accessing 2 out of 10. Then the next metric was, let us look at value addition. Kenya and Ethiopia jumped back to 2 out of 10. Italy jumped from 2 access to materials 2 to 10 out of 10 in value addition. Gold standard. If you look at how much Italy makes from leather that they source globally, including here in Kenya, you'll be shocked. And then you go to complex value chains like upholstery for aircraft, luxury jets, the boats, the yachts, all those things are done using leather from here and from other places. So this is a very, very important. But for us to move far and move to the next level, data, technology, that's why we are here. We're talking about the same, right? So we can actually move, if you look at the aspirations, we can move jobs from 17,000 today to 100,000. And guess what? All of you listening to me today can actually play in this value chain. Do you need to own a factory to do that? No. There are common use of facilities. You just need to be a good designer and good imagination. And you go and take and they stitch for you. A bag, shoe, and they are there. They're here in Nairobi. You can move the revenue from 15 billion to 75 billion. So the reason I'm saying this and I'm pointing this, and we have done this for almost all the 13 sectors, there's a lot of detailed work that has gone into this, and we're now moving to the next level in terms of saying, where can people start? And then we go to a definition of saying, who is the manufacturer today? Who is the manufacturer of the future? And this is where things become interesting. And I'll give you an example. Every one of you know that there's a climate summit that is ongoing. I went there because of sessions that we had, and we did the declaration to move towards green manufacturing. But when I was just strolling and seeing the stalls of people have set up, I bumped into a young 14-year-old boy. I'm just saying boy, because he's a 14-year-old. Njoroge. Njoroge has done, he is actually fusing the real physical world, That is the sewer lines and water and marine and coral reefs and measuring where the depth and what is causing the problem. He has used 3D printing to print a solution that can be able to provide a solution and visibility, for instance, to Nairobi water, to see where the sludge is why the pipes are blocked and where the sanitation, the sludge is not moving. And he is there. He's a 14-year-old guy. If you go to today's paper, standard newspaper, you'll see the story of the young man. So let's come back and look at where the fusion is happening. And I want to take two examples. I want to look at the Industrial Revolution, and I want to look at the eras of computing. Let's start with the Industrial Revolution. I'm sure all of you guys learned that in your high school. That the first Industrial Revolution was powered by the steam engine. The steam engine helped the investors then, the owners of capital then, to start factories, and especially textile factories, to do mass production. Right? That was the first era. 18th century, thereabout. Then come to the back end of 19th century, and then there was, or between 19th century, we had the inventions like the light bulb, the alternating current, right? The combustion engine. That is the second era, that is the second industrial revolution, right? That propelled industry in a way that was imaginable in the past, all right? You could move energy into far distances. You could now set industries far from where the populations were. And then the third industrial revolution is the invent of computers, programming, the internet, that settled a lot of other technologies. You are able now to consolidate supply chain. You are able to distribute your manufacturing. And that again caused the explosion of manufacturing globally. Let's just stop there and say first, second, and third. Let's go to the other side and look at the eras of computing. The first era of computing was tabulation, right? Addition, subtraction, calculators, and some other systems that were being used. And then we went to the second, and we are still within transition from second to third, where we are talking about programmable language, programming. What you know today, your phone is still in second era of computing in terms of it uses a program. You write a code, you instruct it what to do. But now we are transitioning to the third, and we are transitioning. Some countries have companies have transitioned to the third era of computing. And this is now where you're saying the computer is now starting to do things that human beings cannot do. The computer has cognitive capability. All right? That's why we have AI now moving to the fourth, the third era of computing, the 3D printing. But when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, it is actually the fusion of the eras of computing, where we are at third, and the fourth industrial revolution, where it's a fusion, a confluence of the physical, biological, and digital world. And that's why Njoroge is able to use the problems, the physical problems that Nairobi Water deals with, or piping and moving water from point A to point B, using the digital world to do 3D printing, and also now creating an AI and a smart system. That is where we are going. And for us in the future, we'll need to ask ourselves, who is the manufacturer of the future? The manufacturer of the future will be someone who appreciates technology. And you guys, because many of you are technology people, we actually need now to start thinking about where to provide solution, not just the code, but solution in the physical world. The next era of manufacturing will be additive manufacturing. That is the 3D printing. If you're really going to transform the world, we'll have to start thinking about moving away from extractive manufacturing. If you're building a seat, or you have to, a stool, you have to extract, big pieces of wood so that you get what you want. But now we're going to be writing We are already writing, or 3D printing, aircraft engines. We are 3D printing houses. So you guys, all of you, I would want you to start thinking about not just the coding, but also transitioning into manufacturing world. And I think with that, we're going to transform the country. We are going to be at par with other countries, and this knowledge has been democratized. So I am looking forward to have this conversation in much more detail, but I think I've been able to inspire you to think about who is the manufacturer of the future. The manufacturer of the future is a guy who can be able to fuse the digital world and the physical world and the cognitive world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. That was really illuminating, inspiring, challenging as well. But it just shows the amount of opportunity that is out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's one person in the audience who's asking, with the introduction of a carbon tax,
Yes.
do you think that will impact the manufacturing sector?
So my view, Harry,
Yeah.
and it's a very good conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
But look, Africa is contributing only 4%, right? And the conversation, if you look at it, which is a very important conversation, is telling us, slow down your production engines so that we pay you, right? But they continue polluting. So I don't think that this conversation is still at the ground floor if you're talking about the, a high-rise building.
Yes.
But the importance of this is to start thinking, how do we, just like how we leapfrogged technology from landline, we never got landline in our homes, but everybody has a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Perhaps Africa has a solution to transition to the green manufacturing faster, because we're conscious about these issues, faster than the people who have legacy problems.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So mine is not so much about the tax, it's so much about we are alive to these issues. Look, Kenya is producing 92% of the energy using green technologies. And we are going to be 100%, and we can. In fact, we could have been there. Because geothermal, we are still not exploiting the geothermal in Menengai and other places, and Suguta Valley. Correct. So this conversation is important for us to take the lead and lead the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. We appreciate you coming here and inspiring the all the members who are attending. And we hope to call you again at some time in future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome to the Smart Industry Forum, where we discuss the latest tech developments and their impact on manufacturing and supply chain sectors in Africa. The forum will feature discussions on Industry 4.0 technologies in manufacturing, logistics, supply chain management, efficiency and productivity in smart factories, cybersecurity, and global trade impacts. Join us as we delve deeper into the industry world.